ferry to France, by train to Paris, by train to Barcelona, by ferry to Ibiza. I slept my way across the Mediterranean, lulled by the coils of his crystalline streams. In Ibiza, the pension recommended by Frank's friends had a vacant room. I had arrived. My luggage had not. The next day, I walked towards the old city. Saw the buildings across the harbour perfectly mirrored in the clear, tideless ocean. Climbing to the top of the hill, I could see right across the island to the transparent Mediterranean. I shared the solitude with a herd of wild goats and the distant sound of fishing boats. I felt as if this land were mine, and I had known it long ago. Two figures in black shawls approached, gathering twigs. Again, I recognised them because I had seen them in paintings. I consulted my phrase book.
Buenos días.
Buenas tardes.
Buenos tardes.
No.
Yo soy de Nueva Zelanda.
Nueva Zelanda.
Janet. Quiero habitación.
Habitación.
Sí.
Pues podría probar Ignacio. Ignacio, sí. Tendrá bastantes pesetas, ¿no?
Anxious to dissolve their suspicion, I said.
No soy turista, soy escritora.
Ah, escritora. Sí. El patrón. Sí.
They took my arm.
Ven con nosotros, Janeta.
It seemed they were taking me to their landlord,
La cocina,
who would rent me the house next to theirs.
su lavabo, su dormitorio.
The bedroom was large and airy, with a wide window overlooking the harbour, the distant shore, and its mirrored city.
You have bagajes?
Perdidos?
¡Ah! ¡Perdidos! ¡Una tragedia!
I became his unfortunate, shipwrecked guest. I was experiencing the drama of arrival and its place in myth and fiction. The loss seemed unimportant beside the fictional gift of the loss, as if within every event lay its reflection. As if our lives contained mirror cities revealed to us by our imagination, the envoy. Loss became revelation.
Venga, pica el tomate, vale. Yo voy a picar la cebolla.
Misfortune, my advantage.
Sí, tú haz nada como siempre, mujer.
Catalina and Francesca introduced me to the market, to local foods, and Ibizan cooking.
No fuerte, no. No, rápido.
I hired a bicycle and explored the island, stopping to rest at a small pine-bordered beach. The light fell like blue and green snow. The sea glittered. Not an unusual scene, but it touched the antenna reaching from childhood, a telescoping within the economy of memory. Why was the world that haunted me in childhood? Yet I remember the pine trees of Ibiza. The future, present and past telescoped again when John Forrest wrote to offer me an appointment at the Maudsley Psychiatric Hospital in London. A world away, gazing across Mirror City. I knew myself to be well, but perhaps the Maudsley could shed light on my diagnosis, or even overturn it. The spring wind was scented by almond and avocado blossom, and at home,
Janeta,
something else blew in.
el americano.
Hi, I'm Edwin Mather. I'm in the studio upstairs.
Studio?
I'm a painter.
I'm Janetta. Janet.
Oh,
I hadn't spoken English for 3 months.
I live in the front room. I'm a writer.
El Americano. Oh, I felt betrayed, unprotected as English words crowded into my head.
we have to share the kitchen and the John outside, right?
He also thought he had rented the whole house.
Apparently.
Then I guess we just have to get along.
I didn't mean to be hostile, but the link between the world of living and of writing is a high wire, needing intense, relaxed concentration. The presence of others is a dangerous intrusion. Thankfully, Edwin was industrious. He painted most of the day while I wrote. And when we met in the kitchen, he or I would ask.
Quiere el fuego?
Soon the kitchen shelves became crowded with luxury food that set Catalina and Francesca a-quiver with excitement.
Who are those two old women?
They live next door.
But they just wander in and out.
Our fire's the only means of cooking. You should taste their paella.
Edwin also complained, not unreasonably, about the light bulbs.
It is like living in a cave.
He searched the town for better bulbs, which instantly blew all the fuses in the house. That wasn't his only misdemeanour. There was also the beautiful, worldly Eva,
La diabla.
who stayed the night, and the bedsheets had to be washed.
Una desgracia.
Catalina was pleased I was not like,
Los americanos.
but a hard-working escritoria with wrists like railway sleepers,
You about that.
sexless as a block of wood.
Hi.
Janet, this is Bernard. He's helping to bring Freud into Spain.
Ignore him. He's a communist. Would you like a glass? It's my birthday.
Many happy returns.
That night, Bernard's laugh rumbled through my dreams. The next morning, unable to work, I made marmalade.
Hi. I hope we didn't keep you awake.
Not for long.
As I bent over the pan, I caught him staring down my dress.
I don't think I'll be getting much work done today.
What do you do? Really?
Back home, I'm a history professor. But I'm really a poet. I've written several poems since I've been on the island.
He was still staring at my breasts.
It's a beautiful spring day. Let's go for a walk.
So, picture me by the Mediterranean, with a tall, grey-eyed stranger talking of travel
You speak French.
and poetry.
Now in Inge's sunny clime, where I used to spend my time, a servant of Her Majesty the Queen.
I was a little disappointed when he quoted Kipling, but
What about Auden?
Oh, Auden!
Follow, poet, follow.
picture
Right
me,
to the bottom
a
of the
woman
night.
of 32,
And in the heart
blue-eyed, in a blue
such
dress,
pleasant men would hold.
barefoot on the sand.
Sir, may we touch the little girl's hair? It was so red,
Innocent Vincent Millay.
so very red. May I touch?
I try to preserve my image of his perfection, created from the day, the circumstances, the sunset over the sea.
There's my villa.
I was new to seduction.
We can light a log fire.
I felt the finality, the cliche. When he gripped me, pressed against me, I struggled,
I've only just met you. I don't know. I don't.
kissed me, his hands finding the right places until I responded. Bernard's erect penis was now dressed in a condom. Why is he so prepared, carrying them around like indigestion tablets? But I did not want to forego my new experience, and so I suffered and enjoyed shocks and surprise that were lessened by the addicting sensations. After that, I spent every night, most days at Bernard's villa. I saw the disappointment of Catalina and Francesca. I had joined Los Americanos. I was Bernard's woman, Diablo.
Quiera el fuego?
I don't hear your typewriter. I miss it. Aren't you working?
I'm doing research.
I hope you know what you're doing.
I felt that I did. Until one night...
I've run out of supplies.
What does it matter?
I said recklessly. Then after, I wondered.
What if I do have a baby?
Well, that would be terrible. A baby would be terrible.
That night was the last I spent at the villa. I returned to El Patron's, found a key to the front door, unlocked it.
Janet! Janet!
Edwin and I went back to our routine of writing and painting, and blown the fuses.
Quiera el fuego.
It's dark.
He's leaving tomorrow.
Take him some flowers.
My memory of Bernard was not the Midas touch, but the touch of ash.
If you can't work here, you could try Andorra. With the free money market, your grant would go further. If it needs to.
My compass swung, bound to a magnet of reality. And my possible plight. Ascending the foothills of the Pyrenees, the light was choked by dark pines, and my Ibizan spring became a mirage. As we climbed into snow, the regression to winter, to an inescapable present, seemed fitting. For a woman of 32, alone and possibly pregnant. I thought Andorra would be a large town.
Muchas gracias.
But my journey ended in a village square surrounded by mountains.
Por favor, quiero habitación.
I began to walk. I met a young man. He beckoned me to follow. He, Carlos, took me to his home, where I was given the children's room. The spare bedroom was already rented to another lodger, El Vici Mario, but they were grateful for my extra pesetas. I nested into my feather bed and tried to plan a future that included a child. I bought wool, needles, a French book of instructions.
Pour le premier âge, ensemble d'exécution.
A month passed. I became part of the family's routine, fetching milk, preparing meals. On Sunday, I wore the mantilla in church. In the evenings,
En tiempo muy.
I told the children stories.
Once upon a time.
I scrambled recklessly up and down the mountains.
Perigo, danger, avalanche.
I learned about these mountain passes from El Vici, who was a smuggler. My naivety gave this a romantic aura. I hoped and denied my hope, and grew increasingly fearful and pleased at my condition. It was the need for light that solved the dilemma. Thinking of Edwin, I bought a bulb of higher wattage, climbed up on a chair to reach, and became dizzy. I fell. The blood was bulky.
Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand.
I collected it in a towel and flushed it down the lavatory, pulling the chain several times before it shredded and vanished. Weak and sick, I lay in my feather bed and watched the late snow falling. I did not realise until the baby had gone that I had accepted it and was preparing for it. I knew a feeling stronger than regret, but not as intense as a bereavement. I know woman's land, where a marvellous sense of freedom sprang up besides hate for myself.
Janet, you are pale. You need fresh air.
In loss, I accepted Elvici's offered company.
Come with me.
I was prepared to like this handsome man with his gift for languages.
I know a path.
We walked into the mountains and picnicked in the snow.
Janet.
Get off! What do you think you're doing?
But you go with me. No woman go in the mountains with a man unless she wish to be lovers.
Well, that's not the way it is in New Zealand.
Siamo differente. Here women do not go out alone as you, walking and walking. No, nel futuro, in the future, I will walk by your side. You are Andorran now,
he said.
Andorra is your home.
He knelt before me.
This ring belonged to my grandmother.
Hospital had removed a decade from my life.
I cannot accept this gift.
Now, too late. I was behaving like a woman in her 20s.
But can you accept my love?
Giving in to a greedy impulse.
Yes?
For love at any cost. It was concluded that we were engaged and would be married in the church. With a sense of panic, I explained I had
things to do in London first.
In mid-May, on the very morning the road reopened, I boarded the small mountain bus to Perpignan. The snow lay in two high walls either side of the road, and the snowplough cut through the blue light. I emerged from a veil of darkness. The trees were light green. It was springtime, as it should be. Patrick Riley met me at Waterloo Station.
They rented a room for you. Was that presumptuous?
I had been away from London for 9 months. Returning, I knew what I wanted to achieve. I arranged an appointment with John Forrest's contact at the Maudsley. Next, I consulted the Writers and Artists Yearbook and selected a literary agency.
AM Heath Associates.
Patience Ross agreed to represent me
What else are you working on?
and to submit Owls Do Cry to English and US publishers.
Janet Frame to see you, Doctor.
A few days later, I went to the Maudsley Hospital. I needed to know if I had ever suffered from schizophrenia, and I knew that my story could be used to accomplish my wishes.
How did you come to be hospitalised?
I attempted suicide. I walked
Such talk came readily to me as a
I could not go
shortcut to
home,
ensure
and
action.
They diagnosed me schizophrenic.
It was the doctor's opinion that I should become a patient at the Maudsley for observation.
On a voluntary basis.
My plan had succeeded.
I will stick by you, Janet. You can keep your baggage in my room.
In the Maudsley observation ward,
Hello, Janet.
the ratio was 1 professional nurse
Would you like a cup of tea?
to 5 patients.
Okay, Janet, now just take your time.
I was interviewed by doctors daily.
And now, look at this card.
They also obtained my records from New Zealand and gave me tests as an aid to diagnosis. Remembering my days in Seacliff, treated like a prisoner or animal, I was amazed.
Excellent.
Finally, I was given the verdict.
You have never suffered from schizophrenia. You should never have been admitted to a mental hospital. Any problems you now experience are mostly a direct result of your hospitalisation.
I felt as if I had won a prize until I realised something had been taken away.
You have never suffered from schizophrenia.
I had been stripped of a garment I had worn for 13 years. Even when I did not wear it openly, I always had it by for emergency, for shelter from the cruel world. Oh, now it was gone. The truth was more terrifying than the lie. How could I ask for help when there was nothing wrong with me?
Any problems you now experience are mostly a direct result of your hospitalisation.
That final proclamation saved me. I still needed help. I spent the winter
I brought you some new slippers, chocolate biscuits.
in the warmth of the Maudsley.
But I don't understand why you're staying here.
I did not wish to live in the same house as Patrick Riley, who
There's nothing wrong with you.
threatened to take over my life.
You should come home.
Like a bumptious parent.
I'll take care of you.
My doctor had said,
Your father was a bully, and so is Riley.
I told Patrick it would be better if he no longer came to see me. I had been assigned to Dr. Corley. He was polite, kindly. He was interested in the here and now, not theories about the past.
It is my view that you generally need to write.
I do.
That is not a literary judgment, Janet. It is an observation. Writing is a way of life for you. And the best practical help I can give is to arrange national assistance.
And so, I was able to leave hospital and rent a room in a lodging house.
In your ideal life, you would simply live alone and write.
That's all I've ever wanted. But isn't that wrong? Shouldn't I get out and mux?
Only if you wish to. There has never been any question of you being able to exist in the real world. The problem comes when doing that deprives you of your own world.
In 1960, I began to write the story of my experiences in hospital. I recorded faithfully the events, the patients and staff I had known. But to build a more credibly mad central character, I borrowed from what I had observed in other patients. The book was written quickly. When I finished Faces in the Water, I showed it to Dr. Corley.
It's not brilliant, but it will do. Don't rely on my opinion. Show it to your agent.
I did as he advised, and Patience Ross accepted Faces in the Water for publication. Feeling daily more secure in my world, I began writing a new novel. The publication of Owls Do Cry was greeted with silence. Faces in the Water, however, did attract attention. It was assumed that the central character was me.
Surely the use of the first person was a mistake. I mean, a woman who has been what this woman has been would never be able to remember and write about it in this way.
At the same time, my agent and my publisher asked for contradictory revisions to the edge of the alphabet. And so I realised something else about writing. Each decision a writer makes must be as individual and as solitary as birth and death. What was the use of my having survived as a person if I could not maintain my own judgment? It was 1962. I had written 3 novels in 2 years. I received a letter from my London publisher.
I'm Mark Goulden.
Arranging a meeting.
Care for a drink?
I thought he looked like a spiv.
Your books have had excellent reviews.
A work of genius.
But they don't sell.
Unreadable in the worst sense.
I hope that one day you can write us a bestseller. We could give you an apartment. You deserve success, Janet.
The South Kensington basement apartment was quiet and luxurious. There were striped Regency sofas and a white entry phone to keep out the world. It didn't keep out the letter from my sister.
So very sorry to tell you. Dad has passed away. He collapsed and was taken to hospital.
Oh, Dad.
He was suffering a hemorrhage from a stomach ulcer.
Poor Dad. Poor, difficult, bullying, loving Dad, alone in Willow Glen, with his mockery and his stinking fish bag, and his face wobbling with tears at Wellington Wharf. A few days later, I had a letter from the lawyer.
We hope you can return forthwith to New Zealand, as you, Janet Frame, are sole executor of your father's estate.
But if I go back, they could say I'm a schizophrenic. They could lock me up.
The Maudsley verdict offers some protection, but you do have a history. I think you've already made up your mind.
New Zealand is finding its own first voice in the landscape. There's nowhere else I can write about so intimately.
So you are returning for literary reasons?
Yes.
Then buy a return ticket, Janet.
I had been away from New Zealand for 7 years. But I had no close friend to ever say goodbye.
Sexton Blake turned up his collar.
As the ship moved down the Thames, I thought of Dad.
The docks were deserted.
How he would have relished a description of the docks.
Swirled up the Thames.
His world, from the cheap detective stories we had shared in my childhood, of unsavoury characters, narcs and tip-offs.
All right, Gov.
So it was not Dickens or Keats who farewelled me from London.
Spit it out.
It was Sexton Blake.
What have you got for me, Sykes?
While I, in turn, waved goodbye to my father, huddling on the dockside in the dubious company of his fictional heroes.
Question is, what have you got for me?
My homecoming was as sad and desolate as I knew it would be. Yet I relished its importance to the envoy from Mirror City, that watching sylph, the envoy who was looking over my shoulder across the glittering flats, waiting to guide me to my fictional home.
You be quiet. Must let Desmond sleep. Once upon a time, there was a king.
Only the poets know, kiddies. Only the poets.
Can I see it? Look at that. It's tiny.